Question for you, Victoria. Why doesn't romance in films look at all like romance in real life?
Oh, because settling isn't an interesting story. But you know what is interesting? Conflict, anticipation, and simulated intercourse. Welcome to Indie Film Podcast. I'm Victoria.
And I'm Chuck. With Valentine's Day right around the corner, we're talking about romance and indie films.
And specifically, some ways we've messed that up.
So, Victoria, have you made a romantic movie that was missing some of that je ne sais quoi?
I have not. As a hollowed shell of a human being who cannot feel feelings, I stay away from rom-coms.
Okay, so you write what you know.
Yes.
Do you have an example of that in a famous film? Writing what you know versus writing what you have no clue about?
Absolutely. It's actually a really fun story based on one of the most popular rom-coms out there, When Harry Met Sally.
Okay, I've heard of that one. No, I've seen it, obviously.
I think a few of our listeners may have heard of When Harry Met Sally.
Okay.
So it was written by Nora Ephron, but directed by Rob Reiner.
Okay.
And the original ending of When Harry Met Sally was that they did not end up together.
Oh.
Yeah, which is kind of weird for a rom-com.
So it was supposed to be just dark and depressing.
I don't think it was dark and depressing. It was supposed to be kind of this beautiful, peaceful, they're both living their own separate lives.
Oh, okay.
But
so men and women can be friends was the idea initially.
Yeah, and now we've changed it to
now
absolutely
we all know that
not.
It's impossible. No, that was 20 years ago, and now we're back to, no, men and women can be friends again.
I sure hope we're at that point again.
Yes.
But apparently...
Not everything is about sex.
I mean, no, I'm kidding. No, it's not. Not everything is. But during the filming of When Harry Met Sally, Rob Reiner met Michelle.
Okay.
And after a long stint of being single post-divorce, he fell madly in love with her and worked with Nora to change the ending of the movie.
Oh, nice.
Because he was so madly in love and thought that this movie needed a very iconic, cute, romantic ending.
Right on.
Which is kind of adorable.
That is uplifting.
Yeah.
Well, I've definitely been a part of films that miss the mark as far as romance is concerned.
Okay.
And I think the best example of that is the first feature film that I worked on with my brother Elliot. It's called Brown Truck.
Yes.
And it was an ambitious film to begin with. It's science fiction about the singularity, but then we decided to shoehorn romantic interest in that.
Okay.
Because when you think about it, there's almost always a romantic interest in every single movie.
There are very few films that have no romantic plotline whatsoever in there.
Yeah,
very
so
true.
It felt important to add that element.
Okay.
Right, as far as making the story relatable. Because the singularity is not a relatable idea for most people. So we just decided to talk about that from a romantic perspective, where the main character is becoming better as a person because they're growing exponentially. I don't know if you're familiar with the singularity, but the singularity is the idea that at a certain threshold, technology is going to usurp human intelligence. And once that happens, the exponential growth curve will just make it like that the AI or whatever technology will be all powerful almost instantly.
Yeah,
right?
the robot apocalypse that I am continuously preparing for.
Yes, exactly. And so to explain that idea, we tried to shoehorn a romantic relationship in there.
To make it a little bit more relatable, because maybe not everybody is preparing for the day when technology enslaves us all.
Yeah. But it just wasn't well thought out, right? It was missing a lot of the elements of the relationship because we were looking at it from a point of the technology or the idea.
Yes.
And then just kind of putting a Band-Aid of a relationship on top of that. If anyone
we need him to be getting better for a woman, because realistically, that's one of the main drivers for men to be better.
Yeah, bros.
I'm kidding.
You all hear me out there, right, bros?
I think everybody should want to better themselves for themselves.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's insincere.
Yeah, and
not
probably
to criticize anybody that's trying to better themselves for a significant other, but I guess I just am. No, just kidding. So
happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day, all of you out there. Hopefully, this year you are a better person than the last.
So daunting.
I know, right? So Brown Truck, if you're interested at all in checking it out, you can go to lowergentrystudios.com, sign up for their newsletter, and then they have that for newsletter subscribers, like all the old movies that I worked with for my brother that are not available anywhere else.
Because for everyone listening, Chuck wasn't the audio guy for that one. He was the lead actor.
Yes, I was the lead actor on that one.
So it's worth a watch.
Yeah, our friend Jeremy did location sound, but I did do all the post sound on that one, which was my first lesson in wow, this is not very easy at all.
I see why his sound gets skipped a lot. This is hard.
Yeah, you can definitely hear a difference between that and Stockton at Table Rock. But so sci-fi, right? The idea of a relationship motivating that. Obviously, The Matrix.
Yeah,
is a great example
exactly.
of including romance and having that underpin. Well, it doesn't really underpin the story arc there, but it's an important factor in there. But the one example that I think of with sci-fi that's a romance movie specifically is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. That is definitely my favorite romance movie of all time. Because Jim Carrey is incredible.
Jim Carrey is incredible.
Yeah, and so is Kate Winslet. But the idea of the people wiping their memory out and then falling back in love together anyway, in spite of themselves, I thought it was just kind of a beautiful concept. And it did show that like sci-fi does not have to be extremely expensive. Their set deck wasn't crazy. They didn't really
it was
use
still very
any
indie vibes.
Steampunky, right? They just had their old whatever cheap laptops and they're plugging in into people's brains with simple set deck like headsets or whatever. The props weren't ridiculous. I don't even think they used any special effects in that movie. I think it was all practical. Basically.
I don't remember anything like that. But I will say personally, I just think 50 First Dates did it better.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
50 First Dates was adorable. And they didn't go into the sci-fi thing. It was just an amnesia thing.
That's right.
She had short-term memory loss, so she couldn't convert anything to long-term memory.
This was Sandler.
Yeah, Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore.
Right on. Yes. I haven't watched that since it came out.
Oh, it's weird and ridiculous, and I'm not going to say it's one of the greatest movies of all time, but I enjoy it.
Is that when he battles the shampoo and the conditioner bottle against each other?
I don't remember that. Maybe it is.
No, I'm just kidding. That was the one where he goes back to school.
Billy Madison.
Yeah, there we go. That was a horrible movie. I'm sorry for Adam Sandler fans out there, but I personally didn't like it. It was very juvenile. And I think that was the point.
Yeah,
I watched it when it came out, and I'm pretty sure I was 14 years old when it came out. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like this is a little bit beneath my level.
This is too much.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. I will say, as far as romantic movies done well, I think, you know what? Since we're on the subject of Adam Sandler, Click is one of my favorites.
I'm gonna give you Click. I
that
like that
one
movie.
is a little bit sci-fi too.
Yeah, I like it.
But you've got Christopher Walken as Death, and it's just flawless. But I love that the entire concept isn't necessarily will they, won't they on this relationship. Mm-hmm. It's about the impact of how you spend your time as who you become and how that impacts your romantic relationships and family relationships as a whole. It wasn't just about, him and his family or him and his wife. It was him and his whole family and his children and everything too. So I thought that was really good. I also really liked Spanglish. So maybe I really do just like Adam Sandler, which is fair. I do. And man, perfect teeth.
Yeah.
Adam Sandler has perfect teeth.
I never thought about that.
He does. Top and bottom, just flawless.
Oh, that's why maybe that's like a factor for fame.
I don't know.
Maybe that's why they all get their nubs covered.
No, I hope that they're not veneers. I hope he just has really spectacular teeth.
They, as in every single famous person ever. That's what I was referring to.
Yes.
If you're famous, you clearly have veneers. That's what the nubs reference was.
Don't break my heart. I don't want to hear that.
They all go to the same person. They all order the same teeth, just in slightly different sizes to fit their head. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be so negative towards celebrities.
Can we get a dentist as an advertiser now? Does that work? Can we just branch into that a little bit?
Yeah, I want those veneers. Maybe we'll get an instant large following on the podcast if we both come with veneers.
I did want veneers until I found out what you had to do to get them.
Don't they saw file your teeth down into nubs, and then they just kind of mount these veneers on top of them?
I did not realize that. Yeah. I did not know that. For some reason, I thought it was sort of like a surgical. They remove your tooth and replace it surgically with this new one. And
oh no.
Yeah, I didn't realize what veneers were. I just thought it was the recipe for perfect teeth.
I am all about just false teeth because I feel like they're way more exciting. You never know when those guys are going to pop out of your mouth.
Yeah, you got to be careful with what you eat. Taffy's off the table.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I would imagine it would make it more exciting. All right. Well.
Anyway, enough about teeth.
So we could talk about teeth all day.
On the subject of romance, let's talk more about teeth.
Yeah.
That's a fun transition to try to. I don't know how to bridge that gap very well.
That's okay. We won't.
Right.
But the projects that we do respect, obviously, like there's these famous films. One thing that I want to mention, because we talk about Richard Linklater quite a bit. One series that he did, if you haven't seen it, it's called the Before trilogy.
Yeah.
Before Sunrise, Before Midnight, and Before Sunset. Yeah. But that's a great example, I think, of a realistic romance over time. And his first film, he did it, super low budget. It's just two people talking, mostly that famous indie trope of two people chatting. But, there's ongoing discovery. There's the overarching aspect of like this evening's going to end type situation that goes on in that film. And so it's engaging. I believe, everybody has a different requirement for what they feel is engaging. Sometimes you just need to have 30-second videos in vertical format, and that's the most engaging thing that you can ingest.
For me personally, if there's not a slasher introduced in the first 5 minutes, I don't know if I'm going to watch the rest of it.
True. It does help. It does help the excitement level.
I want to know what the stakes are. Yeah. And I want to know real quick.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it is important to have stakes on that.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times that these films miss the mark. And when I was doing some research onto why romantic comedies or romantic films or whatever can be really stale, I started to chat with AI about it.
Oh, that's always a good choice.
It came up with a really, really good breakdown. So maybe we should start our segment that we want to begin this week, which is AI Sucks.
Yes.
Here's the little jingle.
That AI wrote, right?
Yes.
AI actually wrote this.
Maybe it'll play.
No.
That was an AI
Humans run the show.
Humans run the show. Yeah, so
how much do you think you're going to have to suffer during the robot apocalypse for making the computer write that song?
I just want to say, if you think that theme song is okay, then you're the problem with why music has become blanketly all the same type of song. So, AI's guide to a romantic movie. I loved this. Ingredients for a romantic movie. The leads, a determined, charming protagonist, often a baker, chef, or boutique owner.
Okay, that sounds like a Hallmark movie recipe, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar, right?
Yeah.
The conflict, a competing business, a royal obligation, or a prank war. Ooh, thanks, AI. That was great. The vibe, small town charm, a bustling city, or a picturesque foreign location to be determined by the country of filming. And then
whichever one would actually offer you a tax break for filming there, probably.
Exactly. And then now I just messed up my slide here. And
we've got the turning point.
Oh,
so
thank you.
A shared emotional moment. Cooking together, sharing a secret that turns enemies into lovers. Oh my God.
That's awesome. And then I lost my
I know
spot.
that's how all of my romantic relationships started, by cooking together and sharing a secret.
Yeah.
That was it. Okay, so basically the instructions that it's giving are to introduce the conflict.
Yeah.
By establishing the protagonist's dream that is threatened by a new attractive arrival. I'm assuming that's another person, not a competing bagel shop.
Yeah.
That's a really attractive bagel shop. Forced proximity, have the characters work together on a project.
Nice.
Forcing them to interact.
Yep.
Because, of course, that's the only way to go from enemies to lovers.
Yeah.
And the misunderstanding. introduce a minor conflict or secret that briefly pulls them apart. I believe in a lot of films, this is called the lowest of lows.
Yeah.
Where everything was going so well, but now they know the truth and it's bad. Didn't The Office do that? When Aaron found out that Andy had been engaged to Angela and like didn't know, and that was the lowest of lows for their little relationship.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then built it back up from there.
Had to.
The Office does a good job, I think, on romance.
I think so.
Yeah, very, very solid stuff.
They do.
And that's before we talk about why we don't like romance movies. Maybe we should mention the Bechdel test.
Oh, the Bechdel test.
Bechdel. Thank you.
The Bechdel test is one of my favorite. Not that I necessarily always make movies that, I mean, technically this podcast doesn't pass the Bechdel test either.
No, because there isn't two women.
And no, there's not. And also I am realizing now, I've always heard it called the Bechdel test.
Yeah.
But now I don't actually know. Is it Bechdel?
No, it's Bechdel.
I thought
I mispronounced it.
I don't know.
Should we go over the points on the Bechdel test?
Oh, probably. Yes.
Yeah.
So what are the requirements to pass the Bechdel test, Chuck?
Oh, you want me to read them?
Yeah.
One, it has to have at least 2 named women in it.
Okay, so they have to be semi-prominent characters.
Yes.
Okay.
And then they have to talk to each other, the 2 women do.
Okay.
And they have to talk to each other about something besides a man.
And I cannot tell you what is less realistic than that. I know my girlfriends and I only talk about men. It's never our own hopes and dreams.
Oh, really?
Really?
So the Bechdel test is a bunch of BS then?
Yeah, it's just some feminist propaganda, I'm pretty sure.
I thought that was really great because if you go online, you can see a synopsis of all of the 2 female characters chatting in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Oh, yeah?
Which is, I guess if you look at the extended edition, it's got to be like 40 hours of film?
Yeah, probably.
And
it's a lot.
It all boils down to like basically just one little snippet of like 2 women in the same scene actually chatting with each other
about something other than a man.
Yeah, well, no, just in general.
Oh,
yeah. There's really not a lot of 2 women talking together in that movie.
Well, why would you need that? The men are what you're focused on in this story.
That's true. Tolkien.
Yeah,
he was all about that. Yeah. So with that in mind, I feel like the tropes that AI came up with are actually pretty accurate as far as what goes on in most romantic films, because it does feel usually like a Hallmark movie. Yeah. There are some exceptions where they come out as genuine, but a lot of them are so formulaic.
Well, that's why I think I liked Spanglish so much, was that it didn't feel super formulaic. It was really diving into a lot of the conflicts of a family dynamic.
Yeah.
And he, much like AI suggested, is a chef.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, AI did get that right.
Nailed it.
But it's accompanied by all these really pretty shots of just very delicious looking food. And I do like that.
Lean into that when all else fails.
Not going to say no. And I'm going to just own that is definitely one of the reasons I like that movie so much. There's this scene where they're cutting open this sandwich with like egg on it and you just watch it drip down. It's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. Some of the best food styling I've ever seen.
That's the true romance right there.
That is.
The audience and lunch.
You want to pass the Bechdel test? You show a woman and her relationship with food.
There we go.
There will be nothing more genuine in this world than a woman just going to town on a sandwich of some kind.
Yeah.
Because food is amazing.
All right. Well, let's put that on the list of films to create then.
That's it. Just a woman and her food. That's it.
Well, I think with the tropes that happen, we had my brother on, which Elliot, he did talk about like writing realistic dialogue, but not necessarily just the realistic stuff, the interesting dialogue.
Yeah.
And I feel like conflict is the important thing to lean into in those situations, but also finding an interesting point of conflict.
Yeah.
And then being subtle about it. And I feel like the subtlety in a lot of movies that are just bad romantic comedies, like the first thing I can think of is Hitch. For some reason, is the first thing that's coming to mind right now, which, a lot of Will Smith's movies are questionable. Just,
Not all
of them, but he does have a lot of really bad films.
I thoroughly enjoyed Men in Black.
Oh, yeah. That was good.
Just good.
Wild West wildly underrated. No, I'm just kidding. No, that movie was absolutely horrible.
Okay. On the subject of Hitch, though.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm just going to cut you off and insert my
Please.
own opinion on this one. But I think that Hitch, What Women Want, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, these are all very specific movies that fall into this trope that I have eloquently named women are so confusing and career focused and men are bumbling idiots.
Oh, nice.
And it happens a lot.
Okay.
Like, you've got The Proposal, 27 Dresses.
Yeah.
There are countless romance or romantic comedy movies that buy into this trope that a woman can't have love and a career.
Okay.
And a man doesn't know how to feel feelings. And I hate that.
Yeah.
Because one, that's not indicative of real life. I'm pretty sure that just because somebody's career focused, male or female, they're also capable of love.
Oh.
You know?
I didn't know that.
And then,
I've just never been given
contrary
that
to your
information.
commentary here, men aren't idiots. No, I'm kidding. No. but men are like able to feel feelings and just put themselves out there in a genuine, loving way. Like the idea that everything is a 90s sitcom where the couple doesn't actually like each other. I don't like it. I don't like that. That doesn't feel like real life to me.
No. And let's be careful as indie filmmakers about leaning into those tropes as well. And, we watch a lot of indie films.
Yeah.
Because going to film festivals, just thank you all for sending in your films to us.
Oh, yeah. We get to watch your films, which is awesome.
And I feel like if you feel quote unquote inspired to write a film like that, good for you. Go for it. Maybe try to come at some romantic relationships in a less obvious way.
Yeah.
Because that formula, and I am going to say that I have seen that happen on indie films.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know
that
I don't know why you're making this film right now when you can go see it done with a higher budget and follow the exact same plot points, right?
Yeah, because indie gives you the unique ability to branch outside those stereotypical plot lines. You don't have to follow the mold. As an indie filmmaker, you are allowed to mix it up a little bit. One of the movies that was sent to us actually did a good job of that. Clocking the Tea.
Yeah, for
there
sure.
are reviews on our website if you want to check that out.
Yeah.
But Clocking the Tea did a really good job of staying away from a lot of the tropes.
Yeah.
It was at its heart a rom-com of two people that technically shouldn't work together and they're trying to make it work together, but the conflict that arose between them wasn't the expected conflict. And that was nice.
For sure.
I like seeing that stuff. I love it when indie flicks just go for the weird stuff. And the stuff that would actually happen.
Yeah, exactly.
What's that quote? Like, don't try to prepare for the worst things in your life because the worst things in your life are likely to be something that blindsides you on an idle Tuesday.
Oh.
Like.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, you cannot
What's today?
prepare.
Thursday. We're good.
We're safe.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
Good. And we're not idle either, so I'm glad I didn't plan for anything.
But one way that you can up the ante on your indie film and especially make it a little bit more personal and build up to a better means of intimacy is by using an intimacy coordinator.
Yeah, which we actually just had a conversation the other day with a couple other podcast hosts.
Yeah.
And the podcast is called Faking It.
With Ariel and Morgan.
Yes, and they're both intimacy coordinators, and they work on films, anything from like commercial to indie to Hollywood sets.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
Yeah, and it was very edifying for me because in my mind, an intimacy coordinator's job was to make sure that everybody was comfortable on sets with simulated sex or nudity.
Yeah.
And yes, that is true. But they gave us a lot more information about what they do, which was really edifying for me. And I think the number one thing that I took out from our conversation with Ariel and Morgan, as far as intimacy coordination is concerned, is those intimacy coordinators are on set doing romantic sex scenes, simulated sex, obviously, nudity, quite a bit. And
Yes.
so if you are a director or a filmmaker and you're going to film a scene with intimacy, and that might be just one day of shooting or a half a day of shooting, depending on what you have going on. These intimacy coordinators have done this over and over and over again, and they're going to have exercises to help your actors feel more comfortable with each other.
Yeah, they're going to be able to build chemistry between your actors. They're going to be able to set very specific choreography for any of these scenes that make sure everybody feels very safe and everybody's boundaries are being respected.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to talk openly at your safety meeting before you even start shooting that day and sit down with, okay, so everybody knows this, and this are happening in this scene today. And suddenly you don't have maybe a grip or a gaffer who's watching this scene happen and gets really uncomfortable because they don't know, like, we've probably, unfortunately, all been on a set where the experience wasn't ideal.
Yeah.
And people were concerned to speak up, either for safety reasons, for boundary reasons, and that could be for stunts or for romance and intimate moments, or just for general, like, shooting and topics and the wording of the script itself sometimes, right? We've all been in those moments where people didn't speak up and we didn't know how to talk about it and it wasn't comfortable. And even the Film Fights with Friends podcast, people talked about the importance of being able to stand up and say no to when something feels unsafe. And Ariel and Morgan were both very adamant that having an intimacy coordinator on your set gives the crew a person to check in with them. And they have one go-to person to be like, everything's going according to plan. All the actors are safe and happy. You don't need to do anything. You're doing great. But they can also work with your gaffing team to be like, hey, we need a very strategic shadow here because we need to cover something that we can't show. How do we get that shadow? Or you can work with art department. Like, what can we place here? Like, what kind of extra sheets do we have that we can kind of drape strategically over people to hide some stuff? Like, there's just a lot of creative solutions.
Yeah. And it was a really great conversation. You should check out their podcast if you're interested in deep dives on that, because they kind of break apart sex scenes.
Which is really fun.
Yeah.
If you're interested in some of that, like the spicier scenes in TV, they just go through
break it
step by
down.
step.
Like, this is very unrealistic because they're well versed in what's going on in various communities, i.e. BDSM.
Yeah.
Right. If they're, they break down 50 Shades of Grey and they're like, this is very unrealistic on how this actually works.
And
if you're familiar with the material, and it's like keeping the writing within the realm of your expertise, and then if you have something that you're trying to do on screen that's outside of your expertise, an intimacy coordinator can definitely help with that.
Yeah, it's just another tool to have in your toolbox.
Yeah, so I thought that was really cool. Yeah,
that was really nice, especially since I feel like, at least outside of LA. It sounds like within LA, intimacy coordinators, since their inception, 2015 or 2017, Ariel and Morgan definitely knew, but I didn't write down the date.
It was The Deuce. The show The Deuce on HBO was the very first intimacy coordinator that was basically credited as an intimacy coordinator.
Yes.
On set.
So they had to kind of change the way that they handle a lot of that stuff in LA, and I think and probably in some of the bigger filmmaking hubs too, like probably London and a couple places and other places in Europe too. Anyway, I hope that it starts spreading more to smaller communities, because I know here there are very few intimacy coordinators in Idaho.
But they are here.
But they are here.
Yeah.
They are here. And I think theater has started embracing it for intimacy directors a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I hope that indie film sets are going to start bringing that around more too.
I dig it. Yeah. Long story short, if you have a scene where there's intimacy, you should probably run it by an intimacy coordinator. Try to have one on set with you, just so that you don't do something that is not just unsafe and uncomfortable. That's number one.
Yeah.
But number two, maybe you don't know what you're doing. If you've never directed a kissing scene before, they're going to have the tools to make sure that the actors feel comfortable, which is going to give you what you need on camera a lot more quickly.
Yeah. It's going to actually speed up your shoot day.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that, again, it can just look a lot cleaner, because maybe try to go a little bit too big with a couple things, and they're going to be able to guide you. And actually, small, subtle movements really sell it better on camera.
Oh, yes, yeah. So, that was another example that they gave. Where, if you're massaging someone in a certain way, you don't want to have your arm looking like you're
manual stimulation.
Yeah, you don't want to make your actor look like they're trying to start their lawnmower, right? Yeah. It doesn't look very sexy.
Doesn't read the way that you think it reads.
Yeah,
doesn't
exactly. It ends up being humorous. Should we move on?
Which might be the direction you want to go. Yeah. Maybe that's what you want for your film. I don't know. Just Friends did it. So, hey, anything's possible.
Good point. Should we do Filmmaker of the Week?
I would love to do Filmmaker of the Week. So our Filmmaker of the Week this week is Karin Trachtenberg, a writer, director, producer, and actor dedicated to telling emotionally resonant, women-centered stories. After a long career in theater, including classical training in London, extensive Shakespeare work, and a successful autobiographical solo show, she transitioned into filmmaking with the mission of amplifying strong female creative leadership through her company, Third Act Productions. With 2 shorts, 30 festival screenings, and 18 awards under her belt, her next short, Exit, noted as her most ambitious film yet, is currently in post-production.
And as an emerging filmmaker, as an emerging filmmaker in her 60s, she's determined to prove that women's creative trajectories don't have an expiration date. I love that.
I do too.
As somebody in his 40s, I like the idea that there's no time that's too late to get started on your filmmaking career.
There's no deadline.
Exit represents both a personal and artistic evolution, an opportunity to elevate underrepresented stories and to model for other women that it's never too late to take the reins of your narrative and creativity boldly. I like that.
Like it.
So if you want to be Filmmaker of the Week, featured Filmmaker of the Week, go to indiefilmpodcast.com/submit. And please leave us a voice memo because we would love to hear more voice memos.
And then your voice can be on the podcast instead of us talking awkwardly about you. Unless you want us to talk awkwardly about you, because we will.
I like speaking awkwardly. That's why we decided to make this podcast.
Yeah.
To fulfill that dream for me.
Exactly.
All right. With that, shall we succinctly say farewell?
I think so.
Excellent. Bye-bye.